How are we doing for a quorum, Lindsay?
Sorry, I will be right with you.
Problem.
Sorry. Okay, we're at quorum.
All right, thank you. You'll have to pardon me. It looks like I'm looking up to the sky. I found the second monitor to hook into, and so I've got everybody on that. I think maybe what I'm going to do is make a quick adjustment here. And then I will call the meeting to order shortly. Do the quick technical adjustment. There, get my teams. I'll go back and also functioning without my normal mouse. I'm using my touchpad, so that's making me a little more less proficient. Okay, there we go. Okay, I'll call the meeting to order of the Criminal Justice Council on November 5, 2025. The first question I have is, are there any deletions or additions to the agenda that folks would like included? If there are none, I'll entertain a motion to accept the agenda as presented.
So moved.
Got a move? How about a second?
I'll second.
Okay, seconded. All in favor, signify by saying aye. I'm done. Am I step ahead of you, Lindsay? Just we're getting our voting in place. Should pop up.
Sorry, my audio
There
went
it
out.
is.
I didn't hear.
There we go. Okay. Be straightforward. Agendas tend not to be controversial. Thank you, Lindsay. As far as updates go, I don't have anything major at the moment. I do want to remind folks, though, that graduation is this month. It's in 3 weeks, and the day before Thanksgiving. And I know the council has well attended the graduation ceremonies the last few times, and it'd be great to have folks there. So let me just check with Chris. What time is graduation? Is it 10?
10 o'clock, sir.
10 o'clock. Okay. So plan your trips accordingly. Thank you. And I mentioned at the last meeting that we're going to have a professional regulation meeting in December that's going to 99.9999 repeating percent be a hearing, and that it will likely require the day. So again, just a reminder, as you're looking at your calendars, to keep that time, that date open, so that we will be able to conduct that hearing. The next item on our agenda, of course, we had 2 meetings in October 1st and 21st. I'd like to combine, have a motion that combines the approval of both those sets of minutes. Then we can discuss any amendments that need to be made. Do I have a motion to accept the minutes of October 21st and October 21st?
So moved. Anderson.
Okay, thank you, Sheriff. Second, please.
Seconded.
Okay, all those in, discussion. Are there any changes, questions, et cetera, regarding the minutes?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I apologize. There are corrections. I believe it. I'm trying to open it up. I just got back from a call. There's just some minor grammatical things on one of them.
Okay, which one?
I
And
apologize
which?
because I don't have it right in front of me.
Okay.
I'm opening
Well,
it up right now.
while you're looking, I did have a question. It was the agenda of the minutes of October 1st, where there was a reference. It was in the public participation section. There was a reference. There was a question from a citizen about the. Let me get those open. The same thing. About the question of public safety. Indicated that the C director for the Vermont State Fair and Impartial Policing position, is that accurate? I wasn't sure what the C director was, or was that this was the Vermont State Police,
Right, the FIP equity inclusion. I'm not sure why it was reading that. I'll make that update.
Because
so
he was the co-director.
Okay. For the Vermont State co-director of what?
Fair and impartial policing for the department or state
For
police.
Vermont State Police. I think we need to be specific
Yes.
about what that was. Yeah.
Yep.
So, okay, we'll make that change. Sheriff Anderson, have you located your changes?
I have on the council minutes for October 1, page 4. At the top, I made a motion to exert 30 hours as a minimum requirement for 30 hours of training. I believe that I made a motion to set the minimum requirement for training as 30 hours. I don't think there's any substantive concern with that, but it just read weird.
So we'll modify that. Here. We'll modify that to say make a motion to. So, okay.
And all I got.
For some reason, I
Okay.
can't hear anything Mark is saying. I'm sorry. So if somebody could repeat what the change is so I can make that amendment.
That was it. He indicated that on page 4, at the top of page 4, where it says Mark Anderson made a motion to set 30 hours as the minimum requirement for training. And then the other was the same as the one that I pointed out about the C director. So, are there any other changes or amendments that folks had? Okay. Hearing none, we will vote on the motion as presented to approve the minutes of October 1, 2025 and October 21, 2025. The vote will pop up mysteriously. Okay. Hey, I deleted my screen as it was loading. Did we approve them? Between that and those that aren't on the system that vote in by text chat.
Yes.
Thank you very much. I'm having a bad technology day, so bear with me.
I am too.
Um,
It must be the building.
Okay, moving on the agenda. We have the executive director updates. I will turn the floor over to Executive Director Brickell, please.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, council members. Welcome to another version of the Vermont Police Academy, where things change daily and multiple times. I'm going to update you since our last, Lindsay's, you're not hearing? Looks like Lindsay can't hear me. Is everyone else hearing me okay? Okay. I will continue on. So here we go with the updates from our last meeting. First, starting off with the 120th class. As the chair mentioned, we're closing in on graduation. We did have one recruit resign this past week, and that was as the result of being offered another job opportunity. Aside from that, the class has completed their major block finals of both motor vehicle law and criminal law. And the class has also completed their mock motor vehicle court, their mock trial in an aggravated domestic violence case at the Mahady Court in Middlebury. That case was heard by our counsel attorney, Chris Burkett, with counsel provided by the Chittenden State's Attorney, Sarah George, for the state, and Tegan Groff for the defense. They have completed their final crash exam and project and practical scenario night training, which was last night. They have 3 days of sexual violence and child abuse investigation this week, and firearms and driving refresher. And then final exam and scenarios are set for next week. So we fully anticipate graduating 30 new law enforcement officers on November 26th. As a reminder, TC Pennington, who is the training coordinator that drives the final scenarios, is in need of daytime volunteers next week. So if you are available Tuesday through Friday to assist with final scenarios, please reach out to him and let him know that. Any questions on that piece so far? Okay, hearing none. Let me move on to a little update on iAtlas. We are still in the process of our level 3 curriculum update. Their team has completed now 16 topics, totaling 160 hours of content delivery. Their public crimes and drug investigations were completed and delivered. The sex offenses were delivered to us on October 24th, and the stakeholder and SME feedback is due by November 7th. And they're currently now working on the domestic violence deliverables, which were due on or before November 14th. And so I just want to highlight that the new curriculum changes and instructor feedback and potential that there may be some instructors that don't continue on with us when we start delivering our new content. And that may just be because instructors don't have the availability or the content is not their own and they're not comfortable instructing it, or in the manner in which we're looking to deliver new content. So that said, I just want to make sure that new instructors or agencies who would like to have a representative of their agency as an instructor should reach out to the staff here for those that are interested. There's no better time than now to bring in a new interested instructor for folks who will be able to deliver defensible content that we'll be delivering. It's a big job. It's very different from what folks are used to doing. And we have some folks that are transitioning rather well and some that may not be as comfortable in doing that. So any interest that we have from outside instructors will be greatly appreciated. Any question on that piece so far? Okay, moving on to a little bit of staffing updates. So we had this past week our second round of interviews for our Director of Training and Curriculum Development position. We're in the process of moving forward with an identified candidate who I think we all agree will bring some new skills to the position and integrate in a way that complements the new curriculum delivery. And also will remove some responsibilities of the deputy director, which he continues to hang on to. So that will be a process that we hope to conclude fairly soon. The K-9 position, I mentioned last time we were waiting for that job description to be finalized, which it was. We had that cleared through classification. We did advertise that both in and out of state and had only 2 applicants for that position. We did not identify an applicant with the experience and the expertise needed to fulfill this critical role and continue the work that we've already started. So we do have a meeting later today in-house with an operational plan to move forward. You'll get more details on that following that meeting. Mara, our FIP instructor, will be delivering training on tactics for safer law enforcement contact with neurodivergent people. She's going to be delivering 2 sessions on November 13th at South Burlington PD. I would encourage any and all to sign up for this training, which will be held from 8 to noon, and then another afternoon session from 1 to 5 p.m. That training was well received in Rutland when Mara delivered it down there. So I would encourage anybody that is up in the Chittenden County area to sign up for that training. Also, within the next few days, there will be a sign-on registration for this training, which will be delivered in Newport on December 4th. So we're really trying to reach out to agencies, especially those that are farther away from us that don't have the ability to drive here for in-person training, to bring the in-person training to you. So please take advantage of that. Moving on to TC Murek, he completed, I say this is a couple of weeks ago now, de-escalation training out of state. That was a week long. And just topics on that are like how to identify identity types within a few seconds of contacting people, the liability around use of force, and how to communicate with people in stressful situations. You'll see more to come on that in the future and how we decide to deliver what that training will look like here. And he also just completed use of force instructor training last week. So we're kind of beating up on him a little bit while he's still energetic. He will be the contact person here at the VPA to reach out to for use of force full-time basic, use of force for level 2, use of force research, and anything that has use of force related to it. He is the contact person for that. We also have a instructor development 3-day course that's coming up. That course will be the requirement for all BCJC instructors that are certifying for the 25-26 year. The upcoming date for that training is December 15th through the 17th, and that's from 8 to 4 each day. Also for new instructors that are be coming in, that will be a prerequisite for any content that we'll be delivering as an instructor here. And then lastly, as an update on the mandatory FIP training, we have 1,001 certified officers that have completed the training. We still have an approximate 200 left need to go. That is till the end of the year, and that training is available online. So I'll pause there for a second, see if there are any questions on those pieces. Sorry, I'm not paying attention to the chat here, so.
I have a question, sir.
Yes, go right ahead.
For the K-9 position, is there any insight as to what, I guess, the lack of response, why people aren't interested?
I don't have any insight as to the lack, but it is a very specific, individualized person that you're looking to deliver training, and not just in the instructor area, but the actual baseline training that folks need to have. So it's a specialty sort of training. And, you know, the fact that we've looked both in and out of state doesn't tell me much other than the potential that maybe it's a position that isn't paying high enough, but it's what it is through the classification process through the state. So we only have so much to be able to do with that process of what that looks like. But we understand the urgency of it and the need to have a plan moving forward. So that's why we're having a meeting a little bit later today.
Thank you.
Sure. Okay, moving on to another topic. I just wanted to mention this because sometimes when you hear some of these terms, people instantly hear something and then either get defensive or close their minds about it. So I was kind of interested in this, but I attended recently it wasn't a hearing, but more of a presentation put on by the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. And that commission was created to examine institutional, structural, and systemic discrimination caused or permitted by state laws and policies that are experienced by populations and communities in Vermont. This commission expires or sunsets in May of 2027. And two of the commissioners on that commission are Mia Schultz, who is the head of the Rutland chapter of the NAACP, also the wife of our council member, Sean Pratt, and also Amanda Garces, who was our former FIP subcommittee chair. It was good to see them, and this commission essentially holds regional, what they call truth-telling sessions about those who have been impacted by the state in one way or another. And the reason that I attended this was because I learned that on the October 25th session that was held in Rutland, that there was going to be a person who was going to be giving their truth-telling about their story of how they were impacted negatively by law enforcement. And I just personally felt it was important for me to attend, not only as a former law enforcement officer, but also as the director of the academy here, to hear how either systems or policy that we're a part of can cause harmful results. And also in attendance at that meeting was Susanna Davis from the Office of Racial Equity, and our Lisa Ryan, our Community Inclusion Director. I mention this also because these are held on weekends. These are folks that devote their time not only on their work schedules, but on their off time to attend these meetings as well. But I went to see this about the experience with law enforcement, and the woman who was telling her story was of Indigenous descent. And I won't get into the specifics of it, but it was pretty impactful. Her story can be viewed by anybody should you choose to go see it. If you go to the VTRC website, they have a YouTube video of the people that gave their truth-telling experiences. But her experience, I can classify it as it was not good. And there were several mistakes that were made by law enforcement not following policy that had an adverse impact on her and caused her a period of incarceration. Her truth-telling did not identify an agency or put blame. It was just giving her experience. So it was interesting and important, I think, to see, and it would be, I think, eye-opening for those that have the time to take a look at how some of the policies that we all work within can sometimes go bad and treat people in ways that we hope that they're not going to happen. So I'll stop there with that. Any questions or input on that? I see a hand. Kelly?
I just wanted to share that thank you very much for going to that. I think that causes we need to foster trust in the community. So I really appreciate that you went to listen to that really difficult story and represent law enforcement. So thank you very much. I really appreciate that.
Sure thing. I'm sure that others have an interest as well. Sometimes just finding the time to be able to attend or know that these events are happening. And thankfully, I was made aware of the event by Lisa, so I may not have been aware of it had it not been for her either. But we try to get those stories out anytime that we can so that folks have an opportunity to attend. Okay, moving on to an FIP policy update. And not the FIP policy, but just an effort to continue to update the council. Last week, maybe two, I think it was last week, in working to collaboratively work with getting agencies on board with the council's FIP policy. Julio Thompson from the AG's office and our own counsel, Chris Burkett, went to Montpelier and met with Sheriff Colby in an effort to answer in-person questions that he might have on the policy that he's looking to get moved through for his agency. And the feedback I got from that meeting was that they felt they were about 75% there, and that Sheriff Colby was still going to be working on a couple of other issues that were specific to his agency and would help him in his providing services in his area. So he was going to be taking another couple of weeks to work on that. I was made aware, actually, I think it was just yesterday, that we did receive another new revised policy from Sheriff Colby that has not been reviewed yet, but hopefully will be by the end of the week. So I just wanted to let the folks of the council know that we're continuing our efforts at outreach and trying to get everybody in compliance and working to get that moving forward. On to the mandatory DV training. The subcommittee is continuing to work on the production of the mandatory 2026 training, which they have identified the focus to be on determining the dominant aggressor in situations that law enforcement respond to. There's still work to be done to complete this training, which will be delivered both in person and have an online option as well. I would just like to take a moment to really highly encourage those that can attend in person to do that. These are critical training topics that are, important and impact victims of domestic and sexual violence. And not only that, but we have professionals from both the law enforcement community, prosecutors, and the network who are giving of their time and expertise to help develop this training. And I would like to get as many people as possible to attend in person as we roll this regional training out and have folks attend. So you'll see more to come on that before the end of the year. And lastly, as an update, I just want to make folks aware that we do have a hearing scheduled for November 18th this month. That is for a potential decertification hearing. That hearing will take place, will very likely be a default hearing, meaning that the officer or former officer involved may not appear, but the hearing will go on anyway. We have had no further communication from that individual, so I'm not sure whether he will be in attendance or not. There also may be an additional stipulated agreement for that hearing date, but if not, that will be scheduled for an upcoming hearing as well. And also one last reminder on ARIDE training, per council rule, the deadline to complete the training for anyone who took DUI prior to 2024 is December 31st of 2026. So that's just a reminder on ARIDE training. That's the end of my report, Chair, for this point.
Thank you,
Sheriff Anderson.
Director. I think we have a question from Sheriff Anderson.
Just wanted to clarify the date on ARIDE.
The date for completion is December of 2026.
December 31st, 26. Thank
Yes.
you.
Okay. Are you concluded, Director Bikel?
I have, sir.
Okay. What I'd like to do, because if there's no objection, Tim Luders Dumont has a hard stop, and he's going to be briefing on the Alternative Pathways report. I'd like to flip that, if we could put that up now, to be sure that we have time for Tim to report out before he has to leave. Are there any objections to that? I'm not seeing any. So, Tim, if you're prepared, if I didn't catch you off guard.
No, that's
um,
fine.
we'll turn the floor over to you, and we'll just leapfrog over to the alternative pathways and then return to the Act 60 policy requirement when we're finished with Tim's briefing. Thank you.
Sounds good. And I'll also say, the members of the Alternative Pathways group, I'm just going to call them out now because they should feel free to interject and add in whatever commentary, as needed. But Trevor Whipple from the League of Cities and Towns, Bill Clements, chair of this group, Leslie Johnson from the Community College of Vermont. She's not a council member, but she was an incredibly helpful part of the group. Chief Polaway from Capitol Police and Vermont Chiefs Association, Mark Anderson from the Sheriff's Association in Windsor County or Windham County, sorry, Sheriff, and also a member of this group. Dominica Padula from the Attorney General's Office, Chief of the Criminal Division, Karen Tronsgard Scott from the network and a member of this group, Anthony Fakos, a former chief, an interested partner who now works in the federal realm, Major Peterson from Vermont State Police, and had all of these folks, including Mark Anderson, had proxies that also assisted, and Roger Marcoux attended a number of meetings and was very helpful, as did Todd Wilkins from DSP and Justin Stedman from Fish and Wildlife as well. So it was a really wonderful group of folks, agency heads, individuals like Karen and I who don't wear badges and guns, and then the academic community as well, and a really invested group of folks from the academy, from the staff from the academy that I just want to also really call out. And Lindsay is the beating heart of all of the committees, it seems, in terms of keeping people on track, where we're going, the minutes, the agendas. Director Burkell, Ken Hawkins, Deputy Director, Lisa Ryan, Community Inclusion, Chris Burkett, in particular, was super helpful in the last month or so, just getting the report looking better, getting it on a good platform. And I just am very appreciative. It was a community effort. We met almost every week from July until October 22nd for 2 hours every Wednesday afternoon. So it was a substantial time commitment. But I'm really proud of the work that took place, and we moved the ball 2019. If you look way down in the report, you'll see the summary of the 2019 discussion. And we really did move the ball and have a couple of pieces, for potential adoption here. And I won't read through the whole report, but really a lot of the focus was on answering 2 legislative questions in our way. The way that they were framed to us was not something that we actually could answer in the exact way that I think the drafters intended, but we kept in the spirit and did answer those questions. And so the council will satisfy the 2 legislative requests by adopting this report. But if you go to page 4, get right to the heart of the matter, these are really where the recommendations come in. And then there's some appendices that you should take a look at. But if you look at page 4, we recommend that the council, as the task force did, adopt a formal definition of alternate pathways that both, I think, accomplishes future vetting of any future opportunities for alternate pathways. And again, our main focus was level 2 to level 3 in that environment, because we are folks who are in our world, and getting them to the next stage is an important step. But the definition, I'll just read it out loud. Alternate pathways are pathways to increase access and recruitment and build the law enforcement workforce by accommodating diverse life circumstances without compromising the quality, consistency, and rigor of training standards. And so we came up with that working definition, and then a series of bullet points, which are beneath that, which I'll let you read, that really incorporate the universe, not just of the discussion, but let's say Bill wins the lottery. He donates most of the proceedings to the council to pursue alternate pathways. And we have millions of dollars to set up synchronous, asynchronous, in-person, satellite campuses, all these different things. How are we going to vet that? Well, whether it's the legislature or a future version of this council, we now have a framework that we are recommending you adopt that includes a bunch of components. So that's on page 4 there under the definition. And then there's a series of sort of simpler guiding principles, the pillars, 4 pillars: maintaining standards, focusing on practical skills, using technology strategically, as we're already doing, and supporting workforce development. And those are further sussed out. But These are the two pieces that I would recommend, and we would recommend as a group with no dissenting voices, that you adopt as a full council. It will also provide VPA staff and council that sometimes has to go before the legislature for seeking resources, a document that they can move with and be fluid with instead of having to come back to us every time something comes up. Certainly, and we stand ready to reconvene as we all agreed as a group. But this way, if Director Burkell and the chair, Lindsay and the rest have to go over to the legislature and they say, hey, we've come into an alternate pathways discussion. They have something to bring, and they have also a pathway to proceed that we've all agreed on. And so that's really what page 4 leading into page 5 gets into, what we would recommend you adopt. And other than that, I wanted to briefly touch on some of the professionals that we heard from in coming up with these recommendations. And if you look at, and I'm trying to find where it is in the report, including some committee members, but in pursuit of our aims as a group, we heard from our task force member, Karen Tronsgard Scott, who was a member of faculty at Vermont Law and Graduate School. We heard from Leslie Johnson, who was the Associate Academic Dean of Community College of Vermont. Bradley Naples from the Training Response Network. They're one of the leading developers and providers of professional law enforcement training in a web-based environment. Ken Hawkins provided the overview of what we do now at the Academy. I know it sounds silly, we're always talking about it, but starting with the basics, what do we do now? Dr. Brandon Stroop, a professor at Vermont State University at Linden and co-chairs the criminal justice degree program. So what's happening in our state universities right now with some of the entry point to our workforce in Vermont? And then Melissa DuBois, who is the director of prior learning assessment. One of the things we looked at was how can we look at prior learning as a potential vehicle? And a couple of the pieces we agreed on was, first of all, an academic degree cannot replace the experience of being at an academy. There is no pure online version. There's no pure classroom environment version from a university that will replace the police academy structure. And also that there's a huge value in having a singular academy. Even if Director Burkell had 20 satellite campuses, having one VPA seal, having one VPA structure is something that we all agreed was very important. We heard about the issues with other states having several academies. Basically, you didn't go to my academy, you didn't go to the New York State Police Academy, you didn't go to the Fish and Game Academy, you didn't go to the New York City Police Academy, then you're not one of my group. You might be something else. And we know that we have a shared unity and culture, and also some camaraderie, regardless of what agency you end up working at when you go through our academy. And there's obviously a huge room for improvement. And one of the things I think we valued was that we're not going to say no to change. Like, that's the other thing, right? We have a VPA, we have a singular VPA, we have one council. We're not going to say no to change, but we also do value that it's not competing academies, providing different types of foundational work. And we did focus on what we could do with level 2 to level 3 as an area. As we all know, and as some of you know intimately well, the waiver committee is an area right now heavily reliant on Lindsay. And so we need more staff and resources to continue to expand our current capacity to utilize the waiver committee. But it's something that does need further attention, and we agreed upon that as a group. And there's a section on the waiver committee starting on page 7 that we really noted as it's the current vehicle, right, for this. We have some very granular information that those of you that were here in 2019 probably remember, with some details as specific as to hours, the types of portfolio that you would present if you wanted to do an alternate path from 2019. And there's some excellent work in there. The report is linked and sort of embedded from a summary perspective on page 8. Also, Mark Anderson and his group, just prior to this group starting, did work with level 2. And the level 2 curriculum review working group concluded their work in June. And so that's also included in here as a resource, because that's the context we're in. What we did in 2019, interest from the legislature, and the work that Mark did with the level 2 curriculum working group, which there was some overlap between the two committees, which was good. So we did supply a response to the legislature's 2 questions. If you look on page 9 of the report, you'll see the summary and conclusion of those responses, which satisfies a statutory request that we needed to address. And so we present that to the council, and really, it's an entirely different legislature at this point from the time, almost not entirely, but many new members. And so, we will probably have this be sent upon approval, if it's approved, to the legislature to ensure that we're responding to that. And then yours truly and Bill Clements also did some visual art. If you look in the appendices, in terms of thinking outside, if there's other ways of thinking about the current curriculum we provide and how we get from level 2 to level 3. And so you'll see some very crude renderings on page 14 from Bill and I about thinking about that current, and I know it's no longer actually 2 weeks, but the current level 2, how we get more of those folks to level 3. Those are not adopted by the alternate pathways group, but they're ideas for us to think about. And as Ken Hawkins brought up during some of the discussions, the current way we do level 2, it isn't a drop-in model. And so if we were to do that, we need dedicated staff, probably coordinators, things like that are tracking individuals' progress. But you'll see that there's some ideas out there for us to pick up the ball if we needed to. And Bill Clements, starting on page 11 of the report, provided a really excellent description of evaluating alternate pathways of the future. And that's included in the appendices for you, as well as comment from Chief Polaway in terms of his perspective as an agency head and the types of focus he'd like to see. And a lot of it is level 2 to level 3, which is one of the legislative questions we asked. So, I mean, the action items for you to take would be to adopt the report if you find it favorable. And I was incredibly happy with the consensus we were able to gather and some of the work that we were able to do in moving the ball. But the work's not done. And there's no mission accomplished flag for us at this point. This is the next step in the process, building off 2019, building off the work we've been doing. And we know where we're going to land from here. And the group is committed to vetting proposals that come through and being supportive to the council, because much like some of the other task force and subcommittees, there's some folks who are not day members of this council that were really helpful in this process, including Leslie Johnson, who was a community member that stepped up and spent a few months with us. And I think she really added a nice complexion to the vetting that we were doing. It wasn't just law enforcement talking to themselves. It was some external folks talking us through some issues as well. So that's really the report. It's the actual written report is, just about 10 pages. I would encourage you to read through it. And I would, pass it back to you, Mr. Chair, in terms of where we go from here.
Well, thank you, Tim. And first, I think on behalf of the committee, I'd like to thank you for taking the lead on this. And I think Sheriff Anderson gets a nod for really getting us to think about, we need to meet every week if we're going to get this done. So, and we got it done. So it was a great working group. I think the important thing to underscore, I think that was a nice presentation, Tim, that summarized the kind of what we did and where we ended up. I think the important thing, and I'll emphasize what you just said in closing, this isn't the end. This is really a launching point. It's a beginning, but it set an important foundation and framework for how we can consider moving forward and innovating, and not innovating in a major way with radical system change. I think some things that we discussed in the committee about the importance of the police academy, single police academy, and the importance of the residential 17-week academy as a foundational piece. It's a foundation. So really what we might be thinking about doing next is, in addition to that, supplemental to that, and how do we expand out? So the next pieces are yet to be seen, but I think the working group, there was a lot of consensus that we're available to move in some new directions should should the need and the conversation require that. I'll say that with no detail or promises, I mean, short of me winning Powerball for 500 million and financing a rebuild of the academy, there are some other opportunities, and Chris Brickell and I are working on its potential to obtain some funds to maybe allow us to move in a new direction. But there's an important piece here, and that is innovation isn't about layering on what you're already doing with only the people you have and forcing them to do more. There are resource requirements, and that was mentioned in the report. And I think those are things that we're, mindful of and going to need to address as systems evolve. Acatus, some of the platforms that we have are more fully utilized in some different ways of looking at how we might both increase access to certification, but also help with recruitment to some degree. So there's a lot of promise. I was very optimistic, and I think it's a great start. But having said all that, I'd like to open the floor to either other committee members who might have observations they'd like to share, or questions from the council in regard to the report. Karen, please, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair Clemens. I just want to lay some appreciation on our committee chair, Tim Lueders-Dumont, the amount of work that he did to make this process, which was intense, to make this process digestible, especially for those of us who are lay people, was pretty impressive. And so, Tim, thank you so much for all of your hard work, and thank you for your vision in working with this committee. Really appreciate you.
Thank you, Karen. And because my attorney brain doesn't really shut off, I did provide a little crib note in the comment for folks that would like a reading guide, sort of some of the key highlights from the report in just four bullet points.
Great. Others, any other comments, observations? I think what we would like to do, if folks feel comfortable, and I believe we are at a good point, is to have the council adopt the report. I'd certainly open to entertaining a motion to do that.
Chair, I'll make a motion. Oh, go ahead. Sorry,
Okay, there
Butch.
we go.
You do it.
Yeah, Butch
I'm not
has the
sure who
number
that
one
was.
by his hand, so the motion by Butch Shaw and the second
I'll
by
second.
Karen Tronsgaard. Scott.
Thank you both, and
Do we-
I make the motion that, as you just explained it, Mr. Chair, and so we can move forward.
Thank you. Discussion on the motion. I think Tim gave a pretty thorough report out on the report. If there is no further discussion, then I'd like to move the question, and I don't see Lindsay on my screen, but I know she's here to put the vote up for us.
Sorry, my computer's moving very slow, but it's coming very quickly.
Just a bad technology day. There we go. All right. This is great. Thank you all very much. I think this gives us a nice foundation, and as Tim had mentioned in his brief, it really does give us a framework for having a conversation with the legislature and other involved parties for how we might proceed, and that compass bearings as well on some of that direction. So there'll be more to follow. Again, I stress this wasn't the end. Time moves on, things change, and improvements occur, and particularly with the IADLEST project, I think one thing that I'll just make a last closing remark on that, having been involved in curriculum development for many, many decades, that IADLEST project is so foundational. I don't know who was behind getting it to happen, but I know that it's progressing nicely, and it's really doing that curriculum review, again, from the legal perspective to develop defensible curriculum, but also from the instructional perspective and the learning perspective. I think that project is going quite well and is a foundational piece to allow consideration of many of the things we talked about in the committee, which would be very difficult to do without the good work that's going on with that curriculum revision and review and all the people that are participating in it. So thanks to all those folks. Okay. Having concluded that, we'll return back to our regularly scheduled agenda, and I'll turn the floor over to Director Brickell on the X60 policy requirements.
Thank you, Chair. And I would also just like to very briefly echo my sincere thanks and appreciation to everybody who served on that committee. It was a lot of work, but I really appreciated hearing some outside voices from academia about our program and what we do and their view of how or if it could be morphed into a different type of learning platform. And their information was critical for us to hear as well. But this report actually gives me something to go back to our committees of jurisdiction with something rather than statute that's been given to me, make this happen with no resources or thought behind it. This actually provides all of that thought and what it would take to make that happen. So again, thank you to everybody on that committee for that. Okay, moving on to the Access-the policy requirement. This will be brief, but the last legislative session, there was a bill passed relative to the sealing of criminal history records, and it spent the majority of its time in the judiciary. I'm going to mention just a few. Testimony was taken from the Vermont Sheriff's, DCF, Secretary of State, Court Administrator's Office, Vermont Bankers, AG's Office, Office of Racial Equity, Court Diversion, several more. However, there was no testimony provided by the Vermont Criminal Justice Council. And as I understand this bill that had been moving rather quickly towards the end of it, there was a requirement in that bill that requires that the Vermont Criminal Justice Council establishes a policy by December 15th for a statewide model policy that governs the access and use of sealed criminal history records by Vermont law enforcement agencies. And that was really, it's going to be designed to balance the confidentiality of those records with the legitimate criminal justice purpose. So it's going to cover the types of sealed records that can be accessed and sealed criminal history records contained in computer-aided dispatch and records management systems. We also, as a result of that legislation, have to adopt rules that ensure that the standards are met, as well as develop, publish, and review periodically the policy. That said, and having no input into that new law, our counsel, Chris Burkett, will be working with many folks who testified on this bill and were present during testimony to create this policy. My hope is that we have a very robust, documented information and go back and forth from Department of Public Safety, who was very heavily involved in the legislation and testimony. So they've always been partners in working with us when it comes to creating policy. So Chris will be working with folks that did attend that and creating that policy by the deadline that we have of December 15th. Short of that, I will ask Chris Burkett if you have anything to add to that brief synopsis.
Thank you, Executive Director. The only thing that I would add is that when I spoke with you earlier this week, and described my optimism as getting a policy, polished draft of the policy done by the deadline of December 15th. I was not thinking about the word established as the legislature is using it, which meant having it voted on by this council. Since our only meeting in December is December the 3rd, and our next one, I believe, is January the 7th, we are likely going to miss the legislatively artificial deadline of December 15th as far as establishment, but I should have to the council for their review so that we can discuss it and vote on it first thing January. We should be having that policy.
Thank you for that, Chris. And again, a lot of this, we'll be reaching out to DPS, also Department of State Attorneys and Sheriffs, who I think provided also a lot of testimony on this, so that we can get the framework for this policy completed and we'll be as close to the deadline as possible.
Great.
That's my information on the Act 60 policy requirement, Chair.
Okay, I just had a quick question. It's one thing to create the policy. You mentioned rules. How's this going to fold into the rule process through the various channels that has to go?
That's the other important piece of providing testimony on legislation, that many things provide that we create rules with no thought on the rules process, how long that takes, and the amount of work that it takes. Who for one person here would have now bear that responsibility. So we work within the process that we're given, and sometimes we're behind the 8 ball, but we'll continue to work through that process.
Okay. I bring that up because I recall, and I think it was Sheriff Anderson, might have been some others, that when we were talking about potential rules, given that if we had a package to go in, if we're going to be modifying the council rules in some way, then if there are others that are percolating, we might want to get that into the mix too.
I might just want to add to that, Chair, for council members that are not only impacted, but have thoughts on rule, either problems, suggestions, or changes, that you email them directly to me. So there's an opportunity to collate those for the Rules Committee, because everyone has an issue that impacts them, and sometimes all of those voices don't get together at the same time. So if you could funnel those through me, that would be extremely helpful for us to actually identify all of those that we're required to manage and change, those that we would like to manage and change, and working within the existing last rule chain where we see problems that might need to be addressed.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. And if folks have those, please send them to Chris. I'm just looking for a little parsimony and efficiency in the process, having seen some of the rules amendments that we have had to do in the past, and knowing the length of that process. So, okay, thanks very much. Any questions for Chris on this? Oh, okay. Moving down to our last scheduled item of the agenda, the FIP policy report. I'm going to turn the floor over to our Lisa Ryan, and Dan Guerrero as chair, and then Vice Chair Kim McManus, who is also on the meeting. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair Clements. Good morning, council members. I just wanted to kind of set the stage for the review of this FIP policy report. This report was done and worked on over several months. We started this early to midsummer, and we had a lot of great participation from community members, members of the council and the FIP subcommittee. You can see that it's a pretty long report, but most of those are things from the appendices. And you can see the themes that came up from the data that we pulled from surveys, from people directly emailing us, and from our public meetings that we held. And then, of course, the latter part of the document and report is the recommendations that we have for the council to consider. So I'm going to hand it over to Chair Guerra to just go a little bit deeper, and then hopefully we can all engage in a discussion about where the council would like to move with this report. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Lisa. Good morning, everyone. Yeah, as Lisa mentioned, the FIP subcommittee, we've been working very hard on this for several months. On October 31st, we sent out the report to council members. So certainly hope you had a chance to look over it. And again, just to echo Lisa, we noticed in our feedback, for instance, certain themes that were consistent and that we really focused on those themes. We did hear some interesting opinions, right? And certain issues were raised. And in the report, we note that these issues, these opinions were discussed at length back in 2023, 2024, right? We also note in our recommendations at the end of the report that, yes, our report is due January 1st, 2026, but for some reason next year, if we had to, felt compelled to as a council, we could make additions. We don't have to wait every 2 years, and that was something I just learned recently. Thank you very much for that, Kim. I just want to stress too that we, the FIP subcommittee, we are here to serve the council, right? This is again the work that we have done, and today, ideally, I believe we would just love to hear from council about your thoughts of the draft of our report. We would like to stress that we don't have to make a big decision today. We intentionally created a buffer, so we have until January 1st to actually submit the report. But again, today, this would be great to hear from you because, again, we serve the council and this is the council's decision. So this is a chance for anybody, if you have a question or a comment. Again, as Lisa mentioned, the report does look kind of long, but really I think if you actually look at it, it's about 5 pages. So I hope folks did have a chance to read over some of it. But again, this is your chance. We would love to hear from you because we do have time. We could, make changes. I hope not big ones. I mean, theoretically, you can just say we don't like it at all, but this is your chance to voice your thoughts.
There we go. Got my sound back. Kim McManus, the floor is yours.
I just wanted to counter my chair a tiny bit in that this is the FIP subcommittee's report to you to support how you would like to move forward on the review of the FIP policy. The requirement is that the council by January 1st, 2026 has done. We do not need to submit. This report doesn't go anywhere else. It's just it's only for the council in their consideration of the policy. So this report is complete from the subcommittee's point of view, and then what the council wishes to do with our recommendations is completely up to you all.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry.
Yeah. Thank you very much for that context. And I appreciate the time that was built in to have the buffer. If we do have a December meeting to actually vote on the policy. So perhaps because it is very long and we didn't have a lot of time to see it. I like to read all of it, and I was at a conference the last couple of days. I don't know if others were in a similar position, but could you summarize what you're recommending specifically? What changes might occur to the policy as it exists?
Yeah, I can jump in, and then of course, please, Lisa or Kim, chime on in as well. Again, we're not recommending any major changes. In terms of responding to some of the feedback, for example, in section 4, our recommendations under D, we did mention continuing our efforts, the councils, for additional opportunities to promote and educate both the community and law enforcement about the policy. And our feedback, I think we got 30% of folks said it can be a little confusing, the FIP policy. That's one example. Something else that came up, and I know this is just a recommendation, and words here are very important to maybe consider the potential value, just consider of maybe data tracking communication between federal agencies and state law enforcement. That again, we focus on themes in this report, and that was something that came up a number of times. and I'm trying to, let me pull it up right here, if we have any other major ones. Regarding from HRC's feedback, we do recommend that our council permit the FIP subcommittee to further explore the issues that were raised. And I believe this is under, and Kim and Lisa maybe jump in here, under different protections. And I believe this is what Kelly brought up during our hearing and getting feedback from her. Those are some of the recommendations, but again, nothing major. And again, Kim or Lisa, am I missing anything? I see, Kim's hand.
Yes, the short takeaway is that the subcommittee does not recommend any changes to the policy at this time. What we heard from the community were issues that were raised during the 2023-2024 review, and that the council has wrestled with and came to its policy in 2024. So at this moment in time, we do not believe that there's been any larger changes out there in the landscape that would require the council to make a change to the policy. However, in the recommendations, what you see is that there are areas that we think the subcommittee or the council should explore. And again, not as a policy change, but just looking out, because 2 years from now, we'll be doing this again. And as Daniel said, if an emergent situation occurred, you could, as a council, decide to review and adjust the policy at any time. You don't have to wait for 2028. So we had a few recommendations about areas to either explore, either to have the subcommittee explore, like the protections for persons with disabilities and how and whether the fair and impartial policy is the right place to be adding more information for officers, or the data collection, whether that's something of interest to the council. We raised those in the recommendations, but the actual policy, we do not recommend any changes at this time.
Okay, great. Do others have any questions for the committee on the reports or the policy? Dominica, please.
Hi, I think, Kim, you just answered my question, is that for the policy itself, there is no updated recommendation that moves forward. Issues like the data collection is on the agenda in the future to explore the possibility or value of that, but that is not what we are recommending now.
That's correct. Yes. And similarly, in the recommendations, there were a few pieces of work that we recommend that we give to the Associate General Counsel of the Vermont Criminal Justice Council for some legal issues just to look into, because they could be possible issues in the future. But as far as the actual policy, we are recommending no changes at this time. That from the subcommittee's point of view, there was no need for a change at this time.
Thanks, Kim.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for the committee? Well, hearing none, I will open it up to the council. I was thinking that we would vote in December, but at this point, the recommendation is that there would be no changes to the policy after a fairly thorough process. So there's nothing that precludes us from voting, and I think we're looking at two, and I may need to lean on legal counsel here. I think this may be two motions. Are we to vote to accept the report of the FIP committee, and then would we need to vote again to maintain the policy?
That would probably be best. That would probably be best practice as chair.
Okay, thank you. Your vision on the screen helped answer it for me. Sheriff Anderson.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to accept the report from the committee.
Okay, thank you, Sheriff. Do we have a second on that motion?
Well, I'll second that motion.
Yeah, I'm just waiting. We have a tendency of this council to be delayed motion makers. So the motion is on the floor. Is there any discussion about the motion to accept the report? Oh, Lindsay, that was fast.
Sorry, I was a little click happy there.
Okay, well, hearing none, then please vote, and those that are not on the system, do as you have, that are eligible to vote in the chat. Okay. We have an approved report. Thank you very much. Okay, then in concurrence with council's direction, separating the motions, I would entertain a motion to adopt the policy, the FIP, fair, I better spell it out for the record, fair and impartial policing policy as it currently exists. Butch, I see your hand up.
Yeah, my hand is up, Mr. Chair. May I speak to this?
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you. I'm wondering if, because the vote is not on our agenda, is that going to create a problem down the road regarding open meeting law? I hate to be the skunk in the room, but I just have that.
Yeah,
question.
no, that's a good observation. That was lingering in the back of my mind as well. So, I think probably with that regard, that it might make sense to warn it on the next agenda for the vote on the policy to re-extend the policy. I think accepting the report was due. There's been a lot of good work in that, and I don't think there's anything in there that will change at this point. But that's a good point, Butch. That's a good point. So I will. I think in the interest of safety, if you will, on the issue and transparency on the issue, then we will include the extension of the policy on our December, I believe it's December 3rd, at our next regularly scheduled full council meeting. Does that sound agreeable to folks? Any objections to that? Okay. Well, I think we've got our direction, and I want to thank the committee for again a nice planned process for soliciting feedback and open hearings, and again the work and the review that's gone into this. It is an ongoing process, and I think it's quite valuable to know for the council to know that we're not locked in. If it's 2 years, you don't have to wait to the next 2-year cycle. If we feel that there are issues that require more immediate amendment, and some issues that will require discussion about what should be in the policy. The disability piece, I think, really caught my attention as well. And that's something that really does need to be discussed and vetted about whether the appropriate place is in the FIP or another policy for that matter. So I think the committee has provided us with some important issues that need to be discussed more and researched a bit more. And of course, time will tell us as well as things unfold over the coming months in year, with a little bit of turbulence in the jet stream, if you will, in the larger sense of the larger legal and criminal justice community. So we'll see. But thanks to the committee again for some good work, and we appreciate the report and your recommendations. And we will move the vote on extending the policy to December 3. So, okay, thank you very much. This is the general discussion portion of our meeting. And are there any announcements, things that folks would like to share with the council? Or any public participation?
Chair, I guess I would just like to ask that if we could have any council members that plan on attending the graduation, if you could just let
Yes.
Lindsay know ahead of time, that way we have an idea of what we need for seating.
Great,
I'll
yeah,
send
thanks
out,
for the,
sorry, I was gonna say I'll send out an email and invite just so you can block it off in your calendars for a reminder as well.
yes, thank you for that. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully it'll be a nice clear day. We won't have snow or other weather related problems. Okay. Well, having no other items on our agenda or announcements to make, I will entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting. I'm looking at
moved.
Sheriff Anderson. Okay. Moved by Sheriff Anderson. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Daniel has seconded it. I will call it by acclaim. And we look forward to seeing you all. Reminder that we have our professional regulation meeting November 18, so it's about 2 weeks. So we will see you then.
Mr. Chair, just a
Thank-
quick question on the
Yes.
hearing. Should we expect to come in person if we're expecting it to be default, or do we anticipate doing it by Teams?
I will be in absentia. I will be virtual on that one. I don't believe after conferring with council, there may be some other information that may come up, but I doubt very much that the defendant will be in absentia. I don't. No, I don't think you need to come.
If there's any reason that belief changes, if we could just get some notice so we can block
Oh,
it
yeah,
off on the
absolutely.
calendar, that's all.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we'll absolutely do that if there's any change. The December meeting, yes, block your calendar off now.
I'll do
So
that. Thank
for
you.
the whole day. Yes, okay. All right. Thanks very much. We'll see everybody again soon.
Thank you.
Bye.